What up guys, Miguel here of Yugatech, and this is the TCL Plex. TCL is a Chinese electronics company mostly known for their TVs, and the Plex is their first entry in the very crowded smartphone market. If you want to know more about this device, stay tuned and find out. Starting off with design, as a first attempt, I'm actually digging the design language of the Plex, but like most things in this world, it isn't perfect. For construction, the Plex has a pretty nice glass back and front held together by a metallic frame. In front, we get a punch hole at the upper left corner for the selfie shooter. At the back, we get a triple camera setup stacked horizontally and placed on the upper center. Its dual LED flash has been split in two, and it's placed before and after the three sensors. Right below it, we get a rear-mounted fingerprint scanner, and I'm really digging the symmetry that's taking place here. My only gripe is with the placement of the cameras. I think it's too high. Every time I take a photo or shoot a video in landscape, like from here, I always end up like smudging those cameras. I'm already blocking like two. So like there's a space between the rear-mounted fingerprint scanner and the camera module. Maybe if they just place this down here and maybe this down here and this logo down there, I think it'd be a more ergonomic device. For buttons and ports, starting at the top, we can find a noise-cancelling mic for loudspeaker as well as a 3.5mm audio jack. Situated on the right are the volume rocker and power button. On the left, we can find the hybrid dual SIM card tray, followed by the programmable button users can use to open apps, a quick toggle for the flashlight, and even Google Assistant. Lastly, at the bottom, we can find the main microphones for regular calls, disguised in this extra speaker grill, a USB Type-C port, and the actual single downward-firing speaker. Overall, if TCL's goal was to draw as much attention to this device with their design language, they did a pretty good job. Though I don't think it's some sort of revolutionary thing, it's definitely a good starting point. For display, the TCL Plex features a 6.53-inch Full HD Plus IPS LCD panel with a resolution of 2340 by 1080. We don't get any Gorilla Glass protection on this device, so users might want to be wary of where they store this device to keep it as scratch-free as possible. When it comes to media consumption, this IPS LCD panel isn't half bad. For an IPS display, colors look vibrant and quite accurate. Quick tip, what I did was unlock developer options and set the colors to sRGB, so you know, as a creator, I'm kinda more inclined to that color space. So maybe you guys want to do that too for more accurate colors. Watching your favorite shows and movies on this device is pretty nice, though what we didn't like was the backlight bleed around the edges as well as the punch hole. In terms of brightness, TCL could do better, but I guess since this is their first ever smartphone, I won't dwell on it too much. For the audio coming from that single downward firing speaker, it can get quite loud with little to no low end, but mids and highs are very present. For hardware, under the hood it sports a Qualcomm Snapdragon 675 coupled with an Adreno 612 GPU. It isn't that bad, it handled most tasks I threw at it with ease. When it came to gaming, specifically Call of Duty Mobile, I experienced minimal frame drops with the graphics set to high. The TCL Plex gets 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage with expandable storage of up to 256 gigs via microSD. For software, we get Android 9 Pie skinned with TCL UI on top. It's an interesting interface with some pre-installed TCL apps. Of those apps, I only really used SmartKey, which is basically the app that allows users to customize the programmable button on the left. And when it comes to the stock camera app, I'm not a fan of the amount of time it takes to switch between modes. It is slow, which can be trouble if the perfect moment to snap a shot arises and you're still waiting for the phone to get to the desired mode. Other than those nitpicks, I don't have much to say about TCL UI just yet. It's a really fresh interface that I feel needs to mature a bit more, catering to the needs of their future user base. For those of you interested in our benchmark scores, I'll have them flash on screen now. In terms of biometric security, this device gets fingerprint and face unlock. The fingerprint scanner is again a rear-mounted one, and it's surprisingly not as fast as I thought. It takes around half a second to unlock the device, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't sound like much, so let me put it like, if you've experienced a pretty fast optical in-display scanner, the time it takes to unlock the Plex with its rear-mounted one is about the same. Which is why, at times, I truly believe that the face unlock is much quicker. But in terms of actual security, I think it might be best you guys use the fingerprint scanner since this face unlock is optical as as well. For battery, the Plex gets a moderate 3820 mAh cell that supports Qualcomm's Quick Charge 3. Charging this device to full takes about an hour or less, but also it can get a little hot while charging too, though not to a point it feels like it's gonna explode, but pretty hot, especially if you leave it on your bed. In our standard video loop test, which entails the phone being in airplane mode, its brightness and volume set to 50%, and with headphones plugged in, the Plex got us a total of 17 hours and 47 minutes of playback. In terms of real-world use, the Plex's battery life is pretty typical and average. Users will pretty much need to charge this thing up at the end of their days, so that's that. Now for the cameras, at the rear you get a triple camera setup composed of a 48 megapixel main shooter, a 16 megapixel ultra-wide, and a 2 megapixel dedicated low-light sensor. And in the punch hole at the front resides a 24 megapixel selfie shooter. Alright, it's time to check out those samples. So all these photos before you were taken on the default photo mode. In terms of post-processing, the Plex likes to up the saturation as well as the sharpness. Dynamic range is pretty good, and overall it's a pretty substantial camera. The main sensor does have an aperture of 1.8, and sometimes a default shot can look like a portrait shot, but with natural bokeh, which is awesome. Like most smartphone cameras, its problem comes from less optimal lighting conditions. Subjects with harsh backlighting can also lower the image quality of a photo. Quick sort of segue, the flash on this thing is really bright. What you guys see on our screens now is one photo taken on the default photo mode for reference, a night mode shot, and the shot with flash. And I think we can all agree here that the flash photo looks the most clear and sharp. Moving on to where this camera suffers. Portrait mode. This mode on the Plex really sucks. Subject background separation isn't that good, and subjects in most of the samples I took come off out of focus. And I swear I was really still when taking those. Highlights also tend to clip on this mode compared to the default mode, so yeah. On the front-facing side of things, portrait selfies have a much easier time with subject background separation, but it still isn't close to perfect. Highlights usually clip here too, but with the right lighting, users can get an adequate portrait selfie. Image quality improves quite a lot compared to the portrait ones. Dynamic range and sharpness are good, though come suboptimal lighting conditions, and I think you guys already know at this point. You know, a lot of noise comes out and it becomes all grainy, you know. For night mode, the Plex doesn't have one of those that can see in the dark, and with that dedicated low light sensor, I really expected more. I mean, it does balance out the overall exposure of the image, but with subjects losing focus due to minimal shakes, I don't know if I can recommend this mode on this device. The Plex has this 960 frame per second slow-mo mode, and here's a sample of Arel jumping off a couch. Again, lighting is what plagues this set of cameras, and a different angle could have remedied this. Next, I have two samples playing right now. The first is shot at 4K and the latter is on the low light video mode. I think it's pretty clear here that the dedicated low light sensor is coming off gimmicky at this point. Enough said. In conclusion, the TCL Plex is a great first entry from the Chinese electronics company. For a mid-range device, it's got a pretty substantial IPS display, pretty good performance, average battery life, and a set of cameras that work really well in optimal lighting conditions. For those of you interested in the TCL Plex, it retails for 15,990 pesos locally, and that's for 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage, with support for expandable storage via microSD. Now, are you thinking of copying the first TCL phone? Let us know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smack that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell icon so you get notified of future uploads. Be sure to visit yugitech.com for the latest tech news and reviews. Again, this has been Miguel, and I'll see you in the next one.